All right, for this is going to be our last lesson on circles. So, yay. But our last lesson on circles, we're going to talk about the equation of a circle. Now, this is a skill that y'all will see, I know, in Algebra 2 and probably college algebra as well. So, a lot of properties of circles have to do with using this formula to find the equation. I know you can use it with completing the square and a lot of more difficult things that you'll do with this in Algebra 2. So, I just want to give you the basic for it for today. And I'll also, at the end of the lesson, help you with your worksheet a little bit. So that's my plan for today. So the standard equation of a circle is you got this center, which they call H and K. Okay, so H is the X value of your center point, and K is the Y value of your center point, and a radius R. The equation is, all right, you got parentheses here, X minus your H, which is your X value of your circle, parentheses squared, plus the quantity of Y minus the K value, the Y value of your circle, parentheses squared, equals R squared, which is the radius squared. All right, so we're going to see some examples of this. So this one says, write the standard equation of a circle with a radius of 4.2 and the center point at 0, -9. All right, so just for reference, our formula is X minus H quantity squared plus Y minus K quantity squared equals radius squared. All right, so it told us the radius is 4.2, so I'm going to use that for R. And the center is 0, -9. So this is my H, this is my K. All right, so you're just going to plug them in basically. So you're going to say parentheses. Now, X and Y are going to stay there. We're just plugging in H, K, and R. So you're going to keep X and Y just like they are. So it's going to be minus H. That means you change the sign of it. Well, 0 don't really have a sign, so you can just put plus or minus 0 plus Y minus K. Well, my K is -9, and minus a -9 means +9. So it's basically you change your sign of your H and K equals R squared, and my R is 4.2. So I'm going to say 4.2 all squared. And my last step is to simplify everything. So X minus 0, isn't that just X? So the more simplified version would be just keep that X squared plus Y plus 9 quantity squared, which we already changed the sign there. If you want to show the minus and negative and change to the plus there, that's fine. And then you're just going to take your 4.2, put that in the calculator and square it. 17.64. And don't round that, just leave it like the calculator says. So this is my equation of the circle that has a center point of 0, -9 and a radius of 4.2. So basically, you change the sign of your H and put it in there with the X, parentheses in a square. You got to have your squares, okay? Change your sign of your K, put it in there with the Y, quantity squared equals the radius squared. So it's pretty simple. Here's another example. This time it has the center of the circle at -2, 5. So that's my H, and that's my K. And the radius is 7. That's your R. So for your equation of your circle, you're going to have parentheses X, and then you're going to change your H. So change the sign of -2, you get +2, quantity squared, plus change the sign of your K, so that's going to be -5. So Y minus 5 quantity squared equals, my radius is 7, so 7 squared. So then I just have to simplify 7 squared since I already changed my signs. X plus 2 squared plus Y minus 5 quantity squared equals 49. And that is my equation of a circle. Okay, you don't simplify it past that. You keep those parentheses. You keep those squares out there. The only thing is this is the opposite of whatever your H is, and this right here is opposite of whatever your K is. And then you square your radius for your equation. All right, here's a you-try problem. So pause your video and try this problem on your own. and then unpause it and watch me work it. Okay, so hopefully you did this on your own. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you this time with those changing the sign things. So here's my H. Sorry, y'all. Here's my K. Here's my R. So it's going to be X minus from the formula for quantity squared plus Y minus -5. Because the formula said to say minus every time. Equals R squared. Okay, and so we change the signs. So X minus 4 is still going to say minus 4 because that's the opposite of 4 is -4. Plus, okay, minus a negative is plus. So that's going to be the opposite of -5 is +5 equals 11 squared is 121. So either way you want to think about it for those H and K, just make sure what you have in your final answer is the opposite sign as your original center point. And make sure you square that radius. So hopefully your work checked out. We'll see some more of those in just a minute. All right, so then it goes to graphing a circle. And your worksheet will actually have a grid for you to graph on. So here's an example of that. The equation of a circle is X minus 4 quantity squared plus Y plus 2 quantity squared equals 36. Graph the circle. Well, before I can graph the circle, I need to find the center. So remember the center, this is my opposite of my H and this is my opposite of my K. So I changed the signs, okay? So whatever they have in parentheses, I changed the sign. So that's a -4. So that means my H is a +4. And my K is a +2. So that means my Y value for my center is a -2. Okay? So that's the first thing you're going to do. Change your numbers in the parentheses for X and Y, and those are your H and your K. Change both their signs. Okay? Then you're going to graph that point. 4, -2 is right here on a coordinate plane. I'm going to label that with C for center. All right, now that don't look like a circle. That's just the center point of a circle. So what we're going to do to graph our circle, and y'all are going to laugh at me because you know I can't draw, but that's okay, is we're going to use our radius. Well, that is the radius squared. Okay, so the radius squared is 36. So to get the actual radius, we take the square root of that number. So my radius of my circle is 6 units. Now we know that a radius is going to be the same all the way around the circle. So if I count 6 units all the way around that circle, then that should get me a good outline to draw my circle. So now we can't really count diagonal units because you just can't do that. You need to use Pythagorean theorem and other things to do that. But we can count in the horizontal and vertical directions. So I'm going to go the left 6 and to the right 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 1 point on my edge of the circle. I'll go to the right 6. I might have to stretch my screen. 1, 2. Sorry, y'all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's a kind of an outline. I know it looks like a square, but if I kind of round it a section at a time and go around, y'all, that's a terrible circle. But you kind of see what I'm saying. I'm going to try again. Okay? So if you do like a little section at a time, or if you trace something, or use a circle compass. See, I do better doing it like a little section at a time. That's a better circle. Okay, so that might help you do that. So luckily the ones on your paper are smaller, so it's a little bit easier to draw a circle when they're not so spread out. But that's what you do. You use your H and K from your parentheses, change their signs, and that gets you your center point, and then you do your radius, and you count out left, right, up, and down, and then kind of just sketch around from those outside points. Let's see another one. All right. This one's actually a you try, so you can do a you try if you want to pause the video. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So my center point, I take my points inside the parentheses and I change their sign. So that's a -1 with the X. So that means my center point has a positive 1 for the x value. And that's a positive 2 with the y, so I change that sign and get negative 2. Okay, so that is my center of my circle. Change the signs of both numbers in the parentheses for your x and y. So 1, negative 2, I go the right 1 and down 2. So there's my center of my circle. Now, it says r squared is 16. So that's not the radius. Okay, that's r squared. So to get the radius, I take the square root. So my radius is 4. Okay, so this circle is 4 units from the center in all directions. So I'm going to go left 4 from my center. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 1 point on the outside edge. I'm going to go to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go up 4. And I'm going to go down 4. Okay, so yeah, the points kind of look like a square when you do that, and then you just go and you just be as careful as you can and try to make a circle. And if it's not perfect, y'all know mine are not perfect. Mine looks like a red balloon. All right, it's okay. Sometimes I do better if I just do a little section at a time. And draw yourself a circle. So that's how you will do those. All right, so I've made myself a little note right here. So I'm going to skip some things that are in my notes just to save time and make the video shorter. And we're going to go and see some that are like what is on your worksheet. Help you out a little bit. So this is actually number 6 on my worksheet. So you can pause the video here, get out your worksheet, or get out your own paper to do your problems on. And I'll work number 6 with you guys. So you'll have to go back and do 1 through 5, just like I'm doing number 6. So it's just like what we just did. They give you the equation of the circle. You're going to want to find the center and the radius and then draw the circle on the graph. All right. So for the center, remember we change our signs of the numbers in there with the x and the y. So my x value of my center is going to be opposite of -1, which is +1. My y value will be the opposite of +1, which is -1. Whoops, I keep using the eraser. So 1, -1 is my center. And I think the worksheet told you the label to identify those. So make sure you write that and show me the center and the radius. All right, so 1, -1, I go the right 1 and down 1, and there's my center. All right, now for the radius, remember I take the number on the outside, and that is your r squared. The radius squared is 9. So that means to get the radius, we take the square root, and the radius of this circle is 3. So that's the other thing they wanted us to identify. So make sure that you show those in your work. So my radius is 3, so that means I can go 3 in all directions from my center. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And then I just connect it and make a circle. My second one looks pitiful. All right. So there is one from the worksheet number 6. So now you just have 5 of those to go back and do on your own. All right. So now I'm going to the back of the worksheet. I'm going to work a few from there. I think I'm going to work 3. Just because they kind of ask things in different ways. Now, the back of the worksheet says use the information provided to write the equation of the circle. Okay, so previously they gave you the equation of the circle and you had to graph the circle. This time they're going to tell you information about the circle and you have to write the equation. Okay, so we're going to write the equation. And just for reference, remember the formula is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals the radius squared. All right, so they gave me my center point. So there's h and k. We just got to change the signs. And the radius is 2 radical 3. So for my equation, remember I changed my h. So the opposite of -9 is +9. So x plus 9 quantity squared plus change the k. y minus 15 quantity squared. Now the tricky part for here might be r squared. So that's the radius, 2 radical 3. There's some of them where they just gave you a number, so then you just square them, and there you go. This one is number 8, and I thought this was the most complicated one, so I thought I'd do that. So for the radius squared, you're going to take 2 radical 3 and square everything. So that means 2 gets squared and radical 3 gets squared. Well, 2 squared is 4. And radical 3 squared, remember a square and a radical cancel each other out. So radical 3 all squared is just 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So the radius squared is 12. And here is your answer for your equation for number 8. Okay, so you square the whole radius. So you got to square the 2 because it's in front, and then you got to square radical 3, and when you square a radical, the square and the radical cancel out. So like on number 14, the radius says the square root of 43. Well, you would just square the radical and they would cancel out. So that radius would just, or that r squared would just be 43. So on the right-hand side of that equation would just be 43. So that one's actually a really easy one. All right, let's do another one. This one, they give you the H and K, and instead of a radius, they give you a circumference. Well, let's talk about how a radius and a circumference are related to each other. First of all, the formula for a circumference is either 2 pi r or pi times diameter, right? So we're obviously going to use this one because we need to get the radius. So to get r, so we could square it and get r squared, to get r, I need to divide by this by 2 pi. Okay? Well, this is easy math. Looky here. Pi divided by pi cancels out. And what's 12 divided by 2? Well, that is 6. So the radius is 6, but I'm going to need r squared. So r squared is going to be 36. So now I'm ready to do my equation. So change the h and k. So x, the opposite of -9 is +9, plus parentheses, put your square, plus parentheses y. The opposite of 7 is -7, and the radius squared is 36. So here's our equation on number 16. So that's how you're going to do problems 15, 16, 17, and 18. You're going to divide by 2 pi, and that will get you your radius. And then you square it to get your r squared. Number 20, a little different. This time they give you the area. Well, let's talk about how an area and a radius are related. So remember that the area for a circle is pi r squared, right? So if we divide by pi, that would tell us r squared. So r squared is 16. And if I wanted just the r, that would go back to 4. But I'm actually going to need the r squared in my equation of my circle. So you divide by pi, and that leaves you with r squared. And so that means the radius was the square root of it. But we need r squared to do our equation. So you'll go back and do number 19 the same way. So remember, here's our h, here's our k. We change the signs on those. So the opposite of 1 is -1. So x minus 1 quantity squared plus the opposite of -11 is +11. Y plus 11 quantity squared equals r squared, and r squared is 16. So there's number 20, and you'll go back and do number 19 the same way. Divide by pi, r squared is 64. So your number that will go right here on number 21 is 64. So hopefully we have learned about equations of circles. Again, I'm showing you this because I know you'll see this in Algebra 2 and college algebra and other maths you might take, and I just want to be a help